Claire were talking about you. Your beard and your hair, man.
Dude, the hair is on point, Eric.
How the hell?
What the heck? Eric looks more like your logo than you do.
Okay. Well, anyway, my website got destroyed by a Chinese tea kettle company. They took over and started selling their tea kettles on my website.
Are you serious?
Yeah, man, they sold a few on there too.
No, are you really serious?
Yeah.
When did this happen? Is that why you rebuilt the website?
Yep.
I had no idea. How did that even happen?
No clue, but they deleted all my backup data, so I couldn't reset it.
Holy cow! So they just hacked into your site?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess
wow,
so.
WordPress. What's up, WordPress?
They're doing it with magicians. There's something I think about their wording of magic, and so like a lot of Chinese products are marketed as the magic tea kettle, and they're trying to get those hits.
Yeah, but how did they run it through your name though? Because your site's Chris Mike Magic.
Yeah, you go to chrismikemagic.com, and it would just load up.
What does it say now?
Well, now it's back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did you get that fixed?
I got my team to fully rebuild the website.
What?
Yeah, it was expensive, man.
And then you switched over the... Oh, no, because you still have that one as like a family thing.
Yeah, so the Chris Mike Entertainment, my corporate site got smacked, dude. It took a long time to fix, but we're good now. Shout out to James at WebX, who's my marketing manager. He does that stuff. So he's been doing a good job.
So we're back on the podcast again.
Yeah, if you want to be filled in as to why there was a delay, which I don't think there was much of a delay because you were still putting these out, right?
Well, no, this is the second one out. So we put out one last week.
Yeah.
When you're watching this, we put out one last week, and then this one came out this week. So we had like a 1 week delay, I think.
Yeah. A lot of it is just because we've been switching things up with the other videos. This one is the most requested one, so we continue to do this. It's actually gained a lot of traction in the magic community, which is really cool. A lot of my good friends and even some of my idols are now watching this. So thank you guys for the continued support. And again, you guys can feed into this with suggestions and ideas. Shane actually has today's topic in mind. This is going to be sort of a surprise to me, so I want to know what you got.
Is it a surprise though? I literally just told you about it.
Sometimes. Okay.
No, this is something that I think is of also, and I'm just going to keep this in. We're switching up the whole. You notice that the lighting is different now, and we're switching it up, and so the camera we can actually see the screen. But the issue is, and keep this in mind, if you're ever recording yourself with a flip up screen, don't look at the screen.
Look at the lens.
Because you want to look at yourself to make sure you're what you look like. Look at the lens.
To make sure what you look like.
Yeah. So, I think this is a super vital piece of information when you're dealing with the sales process specifically. And it's just something that I have in the middle of, and Chris has obviously been dealing with and figuring out for the last, however many years, which is how to use positioning statements that don't come across as like being a jerk, right. Because I think there's a fine line with that when you're trying to use and explain to people what a positioning statement means, like what is the definition of a positioning statement, and then we'll get into how to use positioning statements within your sales process.
And just like you learned as you were a kid, tone is everything. Sometimes I tell Shane some of the positioning statements that I use, and he's always like, "Ooh, that's a little harsh." I don't necessarily think so, because when you put it in the right tone and say it in a professional manner, and you're using it to help people, you're not doing it to gain anything, you're doing it to help people have amazing events, and sometimes you need to use positioning statements to get yourself out of an event as well. So it's a double-edged sword, but please know that the context is everything here.
Right.
A positioning statement, we're going to deviate a little bit from the norm here of what most people would say that it is, but a positioning statement is something that you say or claim about yourself that sets you apart from your competition and helps people realize that you're something of value. I know that a really tricky position to be in, and all my training comes from jugglers. I mentioned this several times on the podcast, that Barry Friedman, who taught me how to run a business, he was a juggler. Jester Jim, who taught me about how to perform a good show, and I was his tour manager for an entire summer, he was a juggler. All of my closest friends in entertainment are jugglers. So jugglers have it hard because they have to justify, in some cases, how to get thousands of dollars for events to juggle 3 balls in the air. And in their mind, one person who can juggle is the same as any person who can juggle. So they really have to figure out their positioning statements and how to stand out. So a lot of the information I have comes from jugglers. I think magicians can really utilize these as well. So yeah, you mentioned you wanted me to talk about what positioning statement is. What was the next piece of this?
Just we're going to get into how to utilize it in the sales process.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. That's really the only place you're going to use it. You can use it a little bit before your show to establish credibility, but it's at that point.
You can use it during your show as well.
Sure.
I mean, I've seen. We'll get into that. Let's start with the sales process right now. So I don't know how many we want to share on here, but
I'm an open book for you guys. The thing with this podcast is that I want to talk about things most magicians stray away from because it's too personal. So
the first one is when they mention budget and price at the very beginning of the conversation. So you've called the client. You know what I'm talking about,
right?
So you call the client, or they reach out to you, and you're now returning the phone call or the email or whatever, and one of the very first things they say is, listen, we're on a limited budget, or listen, we only have $300, or we just want to know if you're free and how much you cost. I've gotten that so many times in the last 2 weeks. On an email, not necessarily on a phone call, but on an email or a message through one of the lead generation sites that says, hey, are you available on this day and how much do you cost?
Yeah, I feel like humans, again, rehashing some old information here, but humans are looking for excuses not to do things. So when exploring options, the first thing they want to do is ask price so they know whether or not to get in there or get out. And unfortunately, it's kind of one of those situations where there's no right answer. Any price you give them is too much, right? Like they any more than $100 seems unreasonable to them. So I mean, it's so hard to give somebody a price and not just have this slapped on your shirt that says, I'm this price. Because then when they go into the committee meeting or they bring it to their husband, depending on what market you're servicing, all they're going to do is bring a list of numbers. And they'll say, all right, we've got 350, we've got 600, we got 2,000, we got 3,500. These are the ones that, we're thinking about. Which one do you want to go with? Nah, 601 seems fine. They don't know anything about you, about your show. You're not positioned well. You don't stand out. You're just a number to them. So and this comes from Barry Friedman, I'm not going to share his lines. If you need to know the absolute best things to say in the situation, you should take Showbiz Blueprint because he'll give you amazing scripts for all of this. But I'll give you some of the old-fashioned things that come from Dan Kennedy and some of the greats in sales. You should always avoid having a conversation about price right out of the gate.
Yeah.
For that exact reason. You don't want to just be somebody that they give a price and then they tune out. They don't hear the rest of your information. They just don't care what you have to say because you can't justify that price to them at that point.
Yeah.
I try to lower their guard and let them know that price is not the thing they should be thinking about right now. So some of the things that you can say, for instance, are, hey, listen, if price is the first thing you're asking about, I'm not really sure that I'm the right one for you. I'd rather get a better sense of what you're looking to do and see if I'm a good fit first.
Yeah.
So that gets
such a strong statement.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I say. I don't want to share because what I share is from Barry Friedman's course, or what I use from Barry Friedman's course. I don't want to share his techniques, but it's something very similar to that, and that's a very old sales statement. It's just saying, hey, listen, before I even know what price to give you, let's find out what you're ordering first. It's like walking into a restaurant and saying, how much is your food? Well, what are you ordering? So same thing with magicians. We got to find out, do they want us to create a custom show just for them? Do they want 10 minutes? Do they want an hour? I mean, so many of us, we can give advice to tell them what's going to be best, and then we'll put a price on it. But we should really figure out what you're doing first.
Yeah. The next thing is still on the sales call, which is
the initial phone call when they call you. This is like a hot lead coming in.
Right. At the very end, where you mentioned earlier, you just had a conversation with a guy from an organization. I don't know if that's Barry's thing as well.
Oh no, yeah. So I'll talk about that a little bit.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we skipped. So let's just go back one step, which is the initial call. The first thing they're going to ask is pricing or availability. I should mention this. You should also position with availability as well. If you just say yes, I'm available. Well, where's the urgency for them to make that decision? Where's the sense of being desirable? I mean, so many times when I call somebody and they say, ooh, I'm sorry, we just don't have any available spots until 2 weeks from now. You're like, man, I really want to get that guy. And then when he calls you back and says, hey, we had a cancellation for tomorrow. Do you want that spot? You go, yes. You don't even look at other options.
Yeah.
You should do the same thing. I mean, even if your calendar's not completely full yet, you should still make it seem like you've got something going on. Because you do. You are a busy person. That's time you could spend with your family. That's time that maybe you have to send emails. There's always something you're doing that can consider you as busy. So let them know, hey, listen, my availability is not really easy to get. I do like several months notice if I'm going to do something. Let me do this. I'm going to call around and see if I can open that date up. No matter which direction it goes, I'll give you a call back and let you know what we can do. And then you can call them back if you are available and say, hey, listen, it wasn't easy. I moved some things around for you. I'm able to do, and one thing I like to do is not give them the exact time that they're asking for. I'm not really able to do 2 p.m. However, I can come in to get set up at 2:30, be ready to rock by 3. If you're able to make that work, let me know. So it makes it seem like and then of course you can work with them a little bit to get the time that they actually do want if that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But positioning yourself with your availability is almost as important as positioning yourself with time.
Yeah.
So, and now you've moved into telling about yourself. You want to position yourself a little bit different here, just talking about you don't want a credit drop on the initial phone call that much, but you do maybe want to position yourself just through your expertise and your experience, telling them some do's and don'ts for their event.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much all positioning you do in the middle.
Yeah.
Shane specifically is asking when you drop the price. Right?
Yeah.
So you've maybe told them the price of the phone, or you've sent them a proposal, or you emailed over your pricing sheet, and this just happened to me. Guy comes back. Should I share the numbers? I guess it doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't. I don't think the numbers matter.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it was for his.
It was a good amount.
Yeah, for his idea of what Strolling Magic was, it was a good amount. It was
thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and so he comes back and he literally typed in LOL $1,800. He's like,
okay,
listen,
so $1,800.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah.
No worries.
Okay, whatever. So he's like, LOL, $1,800 for an hour of Strolling Magic. He's like, we pay a band $600 for 4.5 hours, and I had to do a positioning statement. I had to say, hey, listen. From the phone call, I got the sense that the band and DJ weren't really working for you. And remember, nothing changes if nothing changes. You need to consider doing things differently at this event so you continue to grow. Listen, if this doesn't work for you, we don't have to do this right now. Let's just work on it at a time where it's more affordable for you. So saying things like that, where it shows, hey, I'm not desperate for this. I don't need this. I'm here to help you. And also letting them know, like, yeah, it is that much, but also, don't you want to have a good event? Remind them that you do get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So now I want to move into, because this is not going to be a long podcast, so I want to move into some positioning statements during the show. One in particular being saying a statement like, you know what, I was just at Interior Design Magazine's event last week, and they said the exact same thing, or
right.
Like I was just in, say you're doing a show in Washington D.C. You're like, I was just in Florida last week at an event, and the exact same thing happened. Like, that's crazy. So it's like you're not like you're not trying to come off. Yeah, you're not trying to brag. And it's not necessarily a humble brag either. It's just a very light positioning statement just thrown into the show.
Yeah, and one thing that's great here is a lot of people have resistance because they don't feel you belong in the rooms that they hang out with. One of the biggest ways to win is to be in the room where it happens. If you go to Las Vegas and you're performing in a conference room, well, when you get asked to perform in Vegas in a conference room, they may not think you're big enough for that. But if you say, oh yeah, I just performed there last month, it was a great success, and they had a very similar feeling that you're having right now.
Yeah.
So, another positioning statement that you can do, this is a little bit different, but, positioning yourself on their side to identify with their problems and then overcoming them is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually in that email, that same email I was talking about, that's what I did. I said, hey, listen, I've worked for tons of Chamber of Commerce events, and I understand that I can make them a huge success. Let me know what I can do to make yours a huge success as well. So I'm saying, hey, I've done this type of event before. People have paid that amount of money. People have paid $800 for essentially an hour of Strolling Magic, and it's been a big success before. Let me know what I can do to remove any barriers so you can see the benefits of having me there.
Yeah. What other things can you think of as far as positioning statements?
This is great when I think you really hit the nail on the head. That's something I wanted to talk about with saying things like, I was just for instance, for me, when I do big clients, I was just at Capital One last week.
Yeah.
You can even do it in your show. Like, I was just performing in the White House last month. If you've performed at the White House, you know, like I don't know how guys get that gig because a lot of guys have as seen on the White House on their material.
Yeah, I don't know. If you know, let us know.
I don't think that has as much weight right now.
No, not really.
As it normally does.
Yeah.
But who knows? I don't know.
Maybe it does.
I think it's just incredibly important to think about how you're coming across to the client. You don't want to put in too many positioning statements where it sounds like you're showing off.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer that everything you say should come from a place of service.
Yeah.
So you should make it sound like you're telling them these things to help them. So, hey, listen, with thousands of events that I've performed in the past 3 years, all of which were a massive success, I have a lot of tools in my tool belt that can help you take this to the next level. Let me know what information I can give you and what things you're thinking about so I can help you overcome your pain points.
Yeah.
That's a positioning statement. It's humble, it feels good for the client, and it shows that you're an expert and a little bit more valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is it for today's episode. Remember, we're only doing one of these a week now. So come back next week.
Comment below what was your favorite tip in here, and also let us know what you want us to cover in the following week or the weeks to come. We definitely listen to that, and we encourage it for sure.
Yeah, that's it. See you
later.
guys.